Welcome to the Savvy Podcast with me, Helen, and my amazing guests. Every week, we'll be bringing you experienced pet pros and specialist experts covering all aspects of the pet industry. Brought to you by Savvy Pet Spa, the global booking software for pet professionals everywhere. Now let's get this podcast popping. Hello, my pet professional peeps. Here we are again, another Savvy Podcast. So obviously, welcome. It's nice to have you back here. And obviously, I want to tell you about Savvy. So Savvy is an intelligent booking software for pet professionals. It's a really, really good additional tool to any salon. It's not just about automation. It's about making sure that you can engage your client base. You've got all the knowledge base for the dog and often for the client, because we all know some clients can be a little bit shifty. But I want to introduce to you today somebody that also uses Savvy, as I did when I had my salon. So she's very used to Savvy, but she's actually very dynamic in her own right. So let me introduce you to her before I get her to say hi to you. So joining me today is Daniella Malcolm Stewart. If you don't know who she is, I say the same thing all the time. Rush to your devices and research. She's very active in the podcast world at the moment. We've just been discussing it, so she can name drop those ones in a bit if she wants to. But what can I tell you about her? So before she says hi, she's an owner operator at Woody's Holistic Grooming Salon. She's trained in holistic grooming, trained at the Holistic Grooming Academy. She's received her diploma from there and is going good guns with that one. She is changed the face of holistic grooming, I think, from what I've read and what I've seen in research, and I've seen the little bits that she's done already. And she's got a bit of a wilder approach, and their impact on dog grooming and how we see it and how we perceive it and interact with our client base. It's pretty out there, but I like it. I have to say I like it. She really did put the greet in meet and greet, or meet and treat, as I call it. And she really did put the greet in that. And she's really, really focused on ACE, which is ACE-free work is very important, but I'll get to talk about that in a bit. She's not only an amazing groomer, she's a badass business boss, in my opinion, because I think she's doing good things out there. And obviously, she uses Savvy. Who wouldn't? It's the most important software out there and the most popular, I hasten to add. So without further ado, let me introduce you to her. Say hello, please.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Well, my absolute pleasure. It really is a pleasure. So, you've just done another podcast recently as well, haven't you?
Yes. So I did a Facebook Live with Canine Arthritis Management recently. And then on Monday, I also did a live with specific grooming, which was amazing. So trooping how holistic grooming works and things like that.
Well, perhaps we'll have to get you in to do a live for Savvy then as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Boris Flynn again. He was a bit of a superstar. So
I feel like a superstar. We're like a unicorn. I always call him a unicorn when you've got a dog that behaves really well.
As you can do, especially when it happens to be a doodle, of course.
That's a unicorn. Sparkles. That's a unicorn. So I'm going to ask you some questions. I know I've run through them, and I know that what you're doing is amazing in the industry. I personally think, and I think there's a lot of people that kind of poo-poo holistic grooming. I'm very much into my crystals as well. So was very much part of what happened in my salon, as well as doing, all the natural stuff. People forget how big the skin is as an organ and how much that helps with the immune system as well. So there's a lot involved in it. Holistic grooming isn't just about a load of people wearing tie-dye and running around going, don't touch the dog, It's not like that. And I think there is a misconception out there. I genuinely do. And,
I agree.
So let's just get out of the nitty-gritty. Can you tell me briefly how you became a dog groomer, how you got into this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So my intention was never actually to become a dog groomer as a career. I fell into it. So it all started when I got my first dog. He happened to be a rescue. He was 18 months old, collie retriever, scared of everything, scared of life. And I'd already been doing a lot of training classes with him. I've been doing behavior courses, trying to understand how he was thinking, how he was feeling, and how I could support him. And then I took him to a groomer's for his first groom, because I thought, that's what you do. He's got his long hair and everything. And the groomer was lovely. There's no reflection on her whatsoever. But he just lost his mind. And he really freaked out with the dryer. And now most normal people would be like, oh, okay, we'll do some work and do some training. My head was, oh God, I've got another thing to deal with him now. I'm just going to go and learn to do it myself. And then that's one less thing I've got to worry about. So I started my City Girls Level 2, finished the qualification, And like I said, that was meant to be it for me. It was meant to be, I can groom Max, I'm happy. But I suddenly realized there were actually quite a lot of dogs that were very much like Max, that was scared of their own shadow type thing. And the traditional grooming salon didn't quite work for them, where again, it's not a reflection on the groomers at all. It's just that some dogs just don't cope in that, like, busy environment. It could be to do with other dogs, all sorts of things, as I've then come to find out. And so I started grooming friends and family's dogs, and it kind of grew from there. And then before I knew it, I've left my corporate role and was working full time for myself in my own little salon that we'd sort of built in my garage. And then after my second maternity leave,
Some of those pesky kids.
damn children, I should have stuck with the dogs. But so when on my second maternity leave, we decided, actually, do you know what? Let's go full hog on this. And at that point, I was doing my holistic grooming diploma, because that for me was the bit that was missing when I did my original training, because that filled in the gaps of, okay, well, I know how to groom a dog to a breed standard, but what happens, or I hadn't been necessarily given the education of, but what happens if that dog can't cope? In which case, then where does that leave me? Hence where the Holistic Grooming Academy came in and actually gave me all the behavior training and things that I needed. And so, I joined the Holistic Grooming Academy, and we did the big refurbishment, which is what everyone is probably most drawn to when they look at...
I'm not going to say that we want pictures to add to this, but we want pictures to add to this. All right?
Absolutely, you can have pictures. Yeah, it is a completely dog-centered salon, so everything was designed with the dog in mind, from the lights in the ceiling being natural daylight, like replicas. We've got underfloor heating so the dogs can get in and out of the shower and it won't matter because the floor will dry. The table is probably the one that everyone looks at the most, because my original table had a ramp on it, but now it's actually on the floor and it gets moved around on wheels that can be locked. Walk-in shower. So basically the dogs have complete free reign. We don't use restraints and things. Again, not against restraints in any way. I think they absolutely have their place. When they
have their place. Use correctly.
Yeah, if they're used correctly in the right environment, they are absolutely fine to be used. It's just for my personal preference, and the dogs that I work with, I found that they were a lot calmer and a lot more tolerable of being groomed when they weren't restrained and they were able to move around. And so, that's how Woody's was born, in the sense of it has been created for those dogs that just can't cope in a traditional salon. And unfortunately, there seems to be more and more of them.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, really, because I know obviously I've got a plethora of years of grooming, and I'm working with dogs myself and kids. Had 7 of them. Prefer 7 dogs. Trust me.
Kind of not just me.
I love my kids, but they would be very happy with me saying that. I love them to bits, but dogs are easier. Much more trainable. But yeah, there has been an influx of dogs with issues. And I think that comes from a multitude, it's multifaceted. It's not just about the rescue dog. It's not just about the dog that's been groomer hop because a customer is penny pinching. It happens. Groomer hop are just people that are bad people. Sometimes they do it because they are embarrassed to say that they can't afford it and they'll go elsewhere. And there are those that just literally will groomer hop. So, but also, how an owner will handle a puppy for the first time, and that has a negative impact, or kind of a negative impact, and then that they take that through into the grooming environment, not associating the dog properly. It could be a groomer incident where there's been a genuine accident incident and that dog's got an association. It could be because it's been handled very badly by a groomer. There are lots of things, medical. It's just that and I do think we tend to, and I've been guilty of it myself as groomers, lumped, this dog's been badly handled somewhere else, and it's only through learning and retraining and rethinking and remapping your own thought processes where you start to realize that there might be a little bit more to this. So I think what you're doing is absolutely admirable. But I mentioned in the intro about ACE. Now, I don't know a lot about ACE, so please tell me about ACE, what it stands for and what it means to you.
Yeah, so ACE Freework, so Animal Centered Education Freework, was developed by Sarah Fisher. It is a fantastic resource that I would highly recommend anyone, if you're working with dogs or living with dogs, to look into. So essentially what you do with ACE-free work is you set up an environment with a variety of textures, a variety of smells, different treats, different objects, and you allow the dog to explore the environment at their own pace. So obviously we know that sniffing is a natural stress reliever for the dogs as well. And so they're already sort of engaged. But from a grooming perspective, it gives a real good opportunity for you to just watch the dog, how they're moving, so when I do ACE-free work, I use objects that I will be using in the grooming environment. So I might put on brushes, I might put down nail clippers or a comb, might put a nozzle from the dryer down shampoo bottles so that they can smell the shampoo and things like that. And I'm gauging their response. I'm watching, are they reluctant even at the sight? Because actually, and even the sight of the brush or the comb is enough for them to go, whoa, then already I'm thinking, hang on, we're going to have a little bit of a problem here. If they're about to smell of shampoo, again, that that's something that we need to consider. Are they comfortable getting on and off a surface? Because if the table's there and they don't go anywhere near it.
Dogs are scared of heights.
Again, precisely that. And it's again, I have some dogs that would jump straight in the shower tray to sniff around because I'll put treats in there as well. And because you use all different treats as well. And that's another way of finding out what they perceive as high value.
Excuse me, so happy Roger, because
we use like toys and different treats. And then I can almost because I know which treats been placed in which place. So it helps you understand because what one dog sees as high value, another might not.
Yeah. And I think groomers as well, will you say that I think groomers as well tend to work on desensitizing rather than looking at familiarizing?
Yeah.
I think the two things are very different, even though they sound very similar. I think they're very different, and it's
absolutely. But it also gives the good bit. What I like most about free work, because this is probably the thing that I'm most passionate about. Majority of the dogs who are struggling in a grooming environment or who have problem behavior linked to grooming, I'm pretty confident to say majority of it is nothing to do with the grooming. It's to do with the pain. Majority of these dogs are in pain, whether that be musculoskeletal, whether that be skin problems, ear infections seem to be rife at the moment. Food allergies is another one. Environmental allergies is huge. So as a groomer, we have to know so much. But I always say to anyone when I sort of talk about the groomers and stuff that, you don't have to be the expert in everything, but you need to be able to recognize stuff. So one of the reasons I use the free work is so I can watch the dog move.
Confirmation. If the confirmation's off, there's a reason for it. So what's the reason?
Yeah. Totally agree. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. So if I notice the dog's got a little bit of a swagger or a little bit of a weird, I can note that down and be like, okay, is there a chance that this dog's got something more of their hips? In which case, me lifting their back legs to access that hygiene area.
Well, exactly. If you look at a dog with a median luxating patella, that's potentially dislocating that dog's hip. You don't know that's, and that's where having the conversations with the customers are really, really important. Having that history, that backstory is key to be able to provide the service. But I'm also aware, and there's no judgment here, guys, to anybody. I'm also aware that when you're in a corporate profession like we are, because it is corporate grooming is what it is conveyor belt grooming. When you're doing that, it's often time restricted, especially if you're working for somebody else and you'll be pushed. Sometimes about educating the owner or the manager. It's not just about educating yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And, it's I get quite a lot of people will say there's sort of the misconception that consent-based grooming or holistic grooming that you can't make any money from it. But actually you can but you have to be confident enough because you're charging for a different service. You're not, and I always try and explain to people, you're not charging people for a groom. You're charging people for a service in this.
Yeah. When I do mention, I say this to everybody and they always go, oh, I've never thought of it like that. You're not just providing a service. You're providing a skill set that came with you that you learned for that service, but you're also providing a service and a skill set that you brought into it. And we all have transferable skills. And knowing your worth is where your price point should be. Yeah. It isn't what somebody down the road is charging or somebody in the next town is charging, or you having that fear. If you go into business blindly with a fear of charging your worth or charging what you want to charge, it might not be worth. You might want to charge, £150 an hour, whatever you want to charge. If you go into a business and not have the right mindset to be able to approach that, you're in the wrong game straight away.
You agree? Totally agree. Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah, no, it's mad. And like, I think Ace. I mean, I didn't know anything about it until I spoke to Emma, and and read up on about it, and I read all about you and did my research. I was like, oh, okay, I quite like this. It's very similar to the way I when I opened my flagship salon, and I rented the space. I as far as I was aware, I was first person to publicly coin the term free roam salon, because I didn't want crates.
Yeah.
I read the legislation around, the dog being free from suffering, free from harm, free to roam. And you can't, if you're a groomer, if you're a lone, and I say this, and I will challenge anybody on this, if you are a lone groomer and you are grooming back to back, and you are not affording those times for the transition from handing over to collecting the dog for the next one, and you hold a hand to keep dogs in crates, you are not in line with the Animal Welfare Act. You're just not.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I would agree.
Because you can't. How can you meet the needs of the dog in the crate waiting? How can you meet the dog in the crate waiting to be picked up, the one waiting to be groomed, and you've got one on the table? That's not okay. And that's not how I ran my. I'm not calling anybody out, but I will challenge that you need to look at that model and see where you can make it better. If that means charging more money because you're offering a more bespoke service, then that's what you need to do.
Totally agree. And that's the thing is, same when it, obviously the whole, like you said earlier about the holistic grooming, people sort of get that misconception of it. The term holistic simply means looking at the whole picture. It's not this la-di-da, something like you say.
I think people expect them to be standing in like singing bowls, and so
meditating over the dog.
Can I touch you today, dog? It's not like that. But I think there's a couple of people out there that probably have not advertised where their intentions have come from correctly, and other people have ridiculed them, and then it's just become a snowball effect. And that's wrong, because there's room in this market for everybody, from all genres, for all experience, qualified, not qualified, But as I said in an earlier podcast, it's about your journey. And if you've gone to that point where you're not learning anymore, it's time to throw the towel out.
Totally agree. I recall myself all the time. I'm a forever student. I'll never stop learning the trade. And actually there's, just things that have come a long way. And a lot of groomers, they don't even realize that they're kind of doing a lot of the stuff that the consumer-based groomers do anyway.
Exactly. I mean, I am clearly not Colin Taylor. Though I'll shout out for Colin Taylor. I absolutely love him. He's a wonderful person. I recommend him and his products to anybody, right? But I'm not Colin Taylor. I cannot groom like Colin Taylor, but nor can Colin Taylor groom like me. So charge your worth. Because you are unique. Nobody else will be able to offer what you offer.
Yeah, exactly.
Charging £20 for a groom or £500 for a groom, it doesn't matter. You charge accordingly to the skill sets you have. Yeah. And if you want to carry on learning, fantastic, do it. If you don't and you feel you're in your lane and you're quite happy doing what you're doing, fine, there's no judgment. But we're in an industry where we need to be supporting one another to get the changes we need, not ridiculing.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, I think more and more owners are starting to look at it in that way as well. And then, the amount of clients that I will have come into my salon, see it set up, and they'll say, actually, I really don't like the thought of the X, Y, Z. Sometimes it's just because they don't understand what's actually going on. But there is that more awareness that they want someone to take the time with their dog, and they want people to do that. And yeah, and that's exactly my point. Some people will come into my grooming room and say that, it's not in their price range, and that's okay. There was once a time I would have been really upset by that and been trying to undercut myself. But now I just go, okay, it's not that I'm too expensive, it's that I'm not within their budget at this point in time. And that's fine, and that's absolutely okay. There's a groomer out there. There are not enough groomers for the amount of dogs in this country. I think there was some statistic, I'm sure, that said the UK was one of the highest or something. I think with the highest percentage of dogs.
I remember back a few years ago when it was Labradors that were the most purchased dog, as a pet. And that's changed. I can't remember what it is, but I know it changed because I was quite disappointed because my first dog was a Labrador and I was Kim.
I do that. Labradors, they're lovely.
You love them. She was a big, chubby black lab, and she was absolutely beautiful. She was lovely. She was a good start for me as far as training was concerned. But yeah, now I'm going to ask you another question, because I know you use Savvy, and I used Savvy in my salons, and I recommend Savvy. Clearly, I work for Savvy, so let's talk a bit about Savvy. What do you think Savvy's done, and how has it assisted you within this grooming environment? But how has it assisted and supported your business? What's the best thing?
So I love Savvy. Prior to using Savvy, I was using a different online booking system that wasn't made for groomers. It was made for beauticians. It did the job. Don't get me wrong. It did what it needed to do as such. But I was always looking for sort of something a bit more. And what I like with Savvy is the fact that I can do the newsletters all in one place. I can do website. I can do my shop all in one place. All the invoices and the Savvy Pay I use as well, which goes straight through the system.
Just Savvy Pay. I was late to the stampede for Savvy Pay, but when they convinced me to start using it, I was like, why did I not do this before?
Honestly, it's brilliant. Of course, you've got all the contracts on there as well. Because I do work a little bit differently to sort of a traditional salon setup. Obviously, I have a lot of contracts. I've got behaviour consultation forms and all that kind of stuff that I like to use on there as well. And if I'm honest, I'm constantly learning about Savvy. There's always something on there that I've not noticed before and gone like, oh, this is amazing. I mean, poor Emma.
Do you use flags?
Yeah, I had one of that today because I got a dog who had Dino's medical condition. So I had put that on there so I knew. Because obviously, for anything, obviously I'm not in a salon, but I still have a lot of dogs that I see every day. And if I don't have the flags, I'll forget.
Well, I use flags predominantly, not just for identifying, medical needs, if the dog needs assistance, don't use a belly strap, medial luxating patella, eye deaf, whatever that might be. Don't leave the dog off the leash because he's got leash rage or what that might be, right? But I started using flags for the size of the dogs with the customer. I don't know if you do that. Do you do that?
Oh, as in like...
Oh, let me tell you. Yeah, it's my top tip. Emma's going to be laughing in the background of this because I tell everybody this. Based on the size of the dog, attach her flag for the size of the dog to the customer. If you have a cancellation or you want to promote something, but you don't want to have dogs that are not good with other dogs, so there's an issue with handover, or you've got a slot that's only going to be suitable for a medium-sized dog, not a large dog, you can literally go into the sent all emails, click and filter the flag to the size of the dog you want to advertise for. So, for example, if you wanted it, so we'll use Christmas. Christmas is coming up, okay? It's just around the corner for us as groomers.
Yes.
So I never ever did full groomers on the last working day of Christmas. It was only baths and blow dries. Did that for two reasons. One, because everybody gives you tips at Christmas, more tips, everyone's happy. Two, I don't want to be working myself to death just before Christmas. So that's what we did. So I would have baths and blow dry flags for dogs that just had baths and blow dries, but I would also have flags for customers I knew that wanted to have that service in the past. So I would have Christmas bath and blow dry flag. And then I could market directly to those customers by filtering those flags and sending just to them.
Love that.
Also, you can send flags, price rises, price increases. Guys, everybody knows about a price increase. You're going to love this one. So we all have this conversation. Oh, I need to put my prices up. How much shall I do it? Blah, 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 blah. And I always say the same thing to everybody. Do a send all email to everybody saying, hi guys, it's July. I have my annual price increase in January. Just giving you a heads up. Then send the same email, maybe September. Say, hi guys, just let you know, annual price increase in January. Just giving you a heads up. And then just before Christmas, same thing again. Because by the time you've put your price up, your customers are so fed up of receiving emails, they don't batter an eyelash at it.
I love this. I need to try this. This is great.
Yeah, see? It's called psychological marketing. I love it. Yeah, Savvy can do an awful lot. And, if you're not utilising flags, utilise them for everything, because I had two groomers in my main salon and myself before I retired, and we would have flags for everything. So I'd have flags for dogs that were banned. So if I literally sacked a customer, I would keep them on the system, but I would have a banned flag so we knew not to book them back in, because they would try and phone you back up and go, oh, hi, can I book Fluffy in? And you don't realise it's the same person because they're calling off a different number, or they may have been a different name. But the second you put the email and the number up, it'll flag up, because when you print Savvy, it will automatically identify it. So there's lots of things you can do with flags. Literally, flags are so underrated and they're so valuable. They're so valuable.
They are good. I must admit, I've not explored it. I'm still fairly new with Savvy, but I can't believe what the difference it's made already. And I just learned all the reports and things. It's just, so much easier. And just because it's all in one place. And I mean, my clients often say, so when we're in, we're like, can we put an next appointment? Yeah. And then because they're in the room and their phone goes off as soon as they're like, this is so cool. Just Google to.
And when you want to, one of the main things for me from my business model was that I wanted customers to book in advance. Yeah. And I don't want to be taking deposits every single time that the customer come in. So I would market. I always had my price increases in January, guys. And the reason I did that was because I could then go in between Christmas and January, Christmas, New Year, to go in and alter my prices, and it would just bang. Everybody's in the same one for the year. So I never ever took anybody past Christmas for bookings. It was always, and at the beginning of the year, again, psychological marketing, you bang out an email to everybody saying, hi guys, just let you know, we're taking on bookings for anybody that wants to book for the year in advance. So straight away, you prioritize one group of customers and you alienate another group of customers by a nice simple email. And the alienated group will always go, well, I want to be in this group, so I'll book for the entire year. Yeah. Then send another email out a couple of weeks later and you say, hi guys, just know we've now opened the books. Please be mindful, we're nearly already full for Christmas, and you'll get a stampede of customers. It's just psychological marketing. That's all it is. You can do so much with it. There's so much you can do with it. And I think that Savvy is, for me, I'm Welsh and I penny pinch. I'm terrible. I want the very most out of everything. So if I was paying for Savvy, I was having every penny worth. You know what I mean? Makes sense. Well, I'm glad that you love it, because I loved it. Yeah, I mean, people often think I'm spinning my yarn when I say that I was a groomer and I used self, and I did, and it was a game changer for me. I was born in an era where there were not telephones in the houses. I remember our telephone coming into our house. I didn't even have a colour TV, so that will give you an idea of my age. So for me, if I can use software, and believe you me, I was utilising customer support all the time. I was in there 24/7. Emma, Lou. And often it was user error.
Oh, yeah, it's mine as well. I've done that many times.
And even though I worked for the company, there are still times where I have to say to a customer, I'm going to have to go and check this out because I don't know. I can't answer that question, Customer support's amazing. Anyway, enough about Savvy because I could talk about it all day. I'm going to ask you now another question. What's next for you?
So, obviously, like I said earlier, that there seems to be a massive increase in dogs that are struggling, especially since COVID. A lot of the lockdown puppies that will bless their little heart. They're a whole sort of.
They see your legs.
Yeah, it's quite scary, and so, but obviously, there's only one of me in my business at the moment. So my plan, sort of going forward, and my long-term goal is to sort of expand in the sense of education. I want to try and support more groomers in feeling confident enough to sort of follow a sort of more non-conventional approach. Doesn't mean they have to do it completely as bizarrely as me, but as in just giving them a little bit more, like have some more tools in their toolbox so they can sort of take on some of those. But also, I really, really want to get more owners and guardians on board with what actually goes into a groom for their dog, what they can do at home that prepares the dog for the salon. Because
that's led me to my next question very nicely, actually. Thank you, Daniella. I've read these questions, and I literally have had to filter them because I had that many. And it's like how would you handle? How do you manage? I'm wording this really carefully because we all. As a groomer, I have words I would never use on the podcast. What's your top tip then to educate a customer who is inexperienced or ignorant? I want to use that polite word.
So, sort of two ways of dealing with it. So, the meet and treat is probably the most important thing that I do. It's as part of my service. I will not allow anyone to book an appointment with me until they've done that meet and treat. Because one, it gives me the opportunity to have that conversation with them. I can gauge what kind of person they are, what kind of understanding they have of, if I've got a dog who's quite clearly extremely anxious and the owner says, oh, they're really happy in here, wagging their tail, then straight away I think, okay, we've got a little bit of educating to do here. And that doesn't mean you go in and be all sort of over the top or, patronising or anything.
Understand them or anything.
Yeah. It's more about having the conversation and explaining things. One of the things I tended to do quite a lot is I would call on my own personal experience. So I would say, like, actually, do you know what? When I had Max, this is what we're doing to X, Y, and Z.
You got that common ground. You
So, you make yourself human, talk on thing, in the sense, you talk about the things that how hard it is to have those difficult dogs. You understand we all want to have a dog that looks beautiful at the end of a groom, and it can be really hard when you don't get that because the dog is not ready to cope. But rather than
setting realistic expectations, so you're going to be able to set a realistic expectation of what the outcome is going to be.
What I found as well is like I said before, majority of the dogs that I deal with, it's for me as an outsider who I guess I've had the training, I've had the education to notice when things may not be right. Like, so, the run-of-the-mill standard owner may not know about gait analysis and things like that. I've had owners before who've come in and when I've sort of said, actually, have you noticed the way they're walking and boss there, and they've got a bit of a weird sort of scratch. I can't quite guess what it is, but you might want to have a chat with the vet and, they'll think, oh, I thought that was normal. And it's not their fault. If they don't know about it. Yeah. And so it's all about wording it carefully. So I had a dog who was severely matted, and the owner stayed with him whilst we shaved him off. And the whole time she was there, I was sort of talking, explaining about the matting, about why it's uncomfortable, about what's underneath and how we can do it. And her first question was then, okay, what brush do I need to use? Can you show me? And so I'm then sat there and going through, and each appointment, I will ask that same client the same, how are you getting on with the brushing at home? Is there anything I can support you with?
So I asked him with that, and this is your homework. So he's been really good today. Did you do your homework?
Yeah, and one of the other things that I tend to do, so I wrote books for that I was meant to, I'd just given to my clients, but actually I've managed to sell a few on my website as well. They're quite useful.
Have to drop the link in. We'll have to attach. What's the name of the drink?
So it's just a workbook. It's called a cooperative care workbook. And what it does, I just have one to hand annoyingly, but what it basically does is it goes through some basic like cooperative care techniques, things like a chin rest, things like scratch boards, so the dogs can file their nails. So it goes step by step how to train those. It's got recommendations of brushes and product. But what I love most about it is in it, it's got a training tracker. So it's got each of those behaviors, and then you can tick what day you've done it, and you can put observations. So how did it go? They can then bring that across to me, and there are
visual cue as well on there, so you can see.
Yeah, exactly. So they can then it gives them that prompt. But the page I love the most is I write on there. So like, what's your motivation? How would it feel if you could get your dog to the point? So let's say a dog will pick up and their nails done. What impact does that have on you right now? So rather than just focusing on the dog, because obviously, the dog is the most important to me. But when you're trying to get that message across to an owner, you have to take into account that they are important as well. So, how is this impacting you? How do you feel when you go to the groomers? Do you the fault that you're having to drag your dog in? And it's horrible. Like, for some people, it's horrible. Even though
I remember having and she wouldn't mind me telling you, the dog's name's Amber. I won't name the owner, but the dog's name's Amber, and the owner worked diligently with us to get Amber. She was absolutely petrified, and she specifically didn't like being groomed around her nipples. She just didn't. She had quite enlarged nipples. She'd had a couple of phantom pregnancies, so there was a massive issue going on.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we had to shave her off because she wouldn't let Mum brush her. She was, she off the table, an absolute dream. Kiss you, lick you, love you. She was really submissive. But on the table is like Jekyll and Hyde. It was horrific. I remember her mum was insisting on her staying for us to shave the dog off. And it was at the point where either we shaved her off or she would have to go to the vet to be stated. It was starting to be really restrictive. And it was not a nice position to be in. She'd been to groomers and they'd done not good things, and it was just really hard. And we worked with her over a period of 2 years, and we've got her to where we needed to get her. However, on the first instance when we had to do the first shave, Mum stayed. And I was like, hold her and encourage her. We don't want to restrain her, but we've got to think of your safety and our safety. And
absolutely,
yeah. And every time Amber was biting or reacting, being reactive to touch, Mum was going, "Oh, good girl," and I'm thinking, stop reinforcing her behaviour, And Dad had to say to me, we had to stop. I said, look, I want to ask you to take her home. She's had enough. It was like half an hour's worth of work. I said, when you come next time, I'm going to actually ask you not to stay because I don't think you're helping her. The mum's anxiety, she was nearly in tears because she felt guilt. She was worried about her dog. She hadn't seen that kind of behaviour. She felt bad for the previous groomers that she'd been calling because they couldn't groom her dog. There was a massive plethora of emotion, and it was hard for us, But with and we learned a lot from Amber. We learned so much from Amber. She's absolutely amazing. You still can't touch her nipples. She just can't touch her. Oh, yeah. She literally, honestly, she has like nipples with just like hair around them, where you just leave that there. It was supposed to, I mean, I don't know now, maybe they've changed a bit, but yeah, honestly, but it was hard to watch mum be so, you felt such guilt. She felt guilt, and you could see it was painful to watch, but she's fine with everything. I mean, we couldn't touch her tail, her face, anything, but now it's just the nipples.
Bless her.
I think she's epidemic. I think that's the thing.
Quite possibly. There could be, or even with the phantom pregnancy, there could have been that she'd been rude during a phantom pregnancy and something had happened. There's so many things. I mean, half our job as a groomer, especially when you're doing sort of behavioural grooming work as well, if half of your job is just being a detective and trying to understand, it's why. So rather than, for me, from my perspective, it's rather than finding a get around as such, in the sense of how do we get around this to get it done, my job is almost to go, okay, well, why is it happening in the first place and what can we do about it?
Look at it as his symptom, they're looking at the cause, not the symptom.
Absolutely. And so, and because, like I said, majority of the dog, it comes down to pain of some description. And then occasionally, like you say, it could be that bad experiences, and then you're having to retrain that behavior in the sense of, it can be quite difficult, but it's emotionally draining. And so I work collaboratively quite a lot with 3 behaviourists, a vet nurse, a chiropractor, and a nutritionist. And so I refer on to them quite a lot when I need to, because I know
it's good to have those connections. And I say to people, don't be afraid to refer people elsewhere, and I'm not talking about grooming, I'm about other bodies that can support with eyes. It is important. But I think, for me personally, if I was still grooming, I would be doing this course now. I might even do it anyway because I still have dogs, but they're amazing. So they are amazing. Well, one was a bit goofy, but but she's not got.
the bats was.
She'd be lying on the floor downstairs with her legs on the kimbo, going, oh. So that's what. Yeah, I'm going to ask you another question. And if you could recommend one thing to change in an ordinary grooming environment, so I'm talking a basic bog standard grooming environment, whatever a basic bog standard grooming environment is, but you know what I mean. Yeah. If you could say change one thing and see a difference, what would you? That's a tough question. What would you recommend? What would you advise?
I would say for every groomer who is working within the grooming industry or in the environment to have to be given training in canine behavior and body language, and canine anatomy from a point of view from like a chiropractor or something like that. Because I think a lot of the problems that we often have stem from they haven't got the education, they haven't been given the education. It's not that they've not wanted to, and it's not that they've not tried.
It's not available to them.
It's just not there.
Maybe that's what you could do next. Maybe you could put like a little catalogue of courses that people can attend. No,
that'd be a good idea. But yeah, no, that's, I think.
£50, please. No, just stress.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm pretty sure the Holistic Grooming Academy might hurt me for that, because that's, in theory, that is what they are. That is what that's what Stephanie stands for and her group. But yeah, so I just think, because I don't think there's nothing, I think every salon, they all have their own setups, and it has to work for the individual and it has to work for the dog. And what works for one isn't, there isn't a blanket thing. You can't just, I mean, when I was looking at the table, I could go out, and try and market a table like the ones that I had with the ramp or something like that. But it worked for me. It won't necessarily work for someone else. And the same with the salons. And so I don't think to change, I wouldn't say we necessarily need to change anything physically. It's more about giving the groomers the education to feel empowered to speak to the guardians in a way that's, like you say, it's not condescending, it's not patronizing, but they have to feel strong enough with themselves. They know what they're talking about. And there are some fantastic stylists out there. But that's the problem sometimes, if the owner will go, but it's just the stuff, like they don't get that actually behind that styling knowledge, we also have to almost have dermatology knowledge. We have to have canine anatomy. We need to know about dental. We need to know about health conditions. We need to know about behavior.
Everything.
Exactly. And biochemistry and all this kind of stuff. Like, there's so much what groomers need to know. And I just think the education that's given needs to be better, because these aren't people.
That's not going to change until our industry is regulated better. That's
100%. And then it's funny because I laugh, because in theory, obviously I've only got my level 2. So technically I'm not fully qualified. But the difference is I've gone out and then sort of done my own sort of
Auditions, added more qualifications and certification elsewhere.
Yes. And one of the reasons I didn't do it was because I felt the information I was being given wasn't what I needed.
I qualified, and when I qualified back moons ago, it wasn't the ability to have the final part of your Sitting Girls level 3. It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I was invited back to have that, to do the hand stripping, the long-legged terrier, all the rest of it. And I went back and did that. And there were probably 30 people on my course when we started, and I was the only person that went back to finish that qualification. But that was my journey, and I know that quite a few of them are grooming, and they're doing a lovely job and everything else. Personally, I wanted that for myself. I had the experience. I didn't mean the qualification; it was a personal thing. But but it does need to be regulated, and it is an issue. I think if we're not careful as a grooming industry and we don't all work together, it'll be regulated by people that don't know what we do, don't understand what we do, and inhibit us rather than enable us to do better. It's a worry for me. Right. And I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to ask you my very last question. I ask everyone. No, it's a good question. You like it. And we've had some really, really good, there's no wrong answer here, okay? So now, at the end of this podcast, I'm going to whisk you away and I'm going to take you to a desert island on your own. You're only allowed one pet of a coat type of your choice. What pet would that be? And then the next question after that is, with that pet and on your island, you're allowed one grooming product and one grooming tool. What would they be and why? And you can name drop all you want to, by the way. Good question.
Good question. But now I feel really bad because there's 2 of my own pets, so I can't pick between. Well,
you don't be your pets. It could be a breed that you would prefer to take. I mean, we'll sneak your pets in by airplane later. Every fine.
If it wasn't, if I took Monty and grew out of the occasion, because a hamster on his head would just be a bad idea. But if I was, this is a tricky one. I think the breed that I must admit, because I lost my collie Pross earlier this year, and people keep saying to me, do you think you'll have another dog? And I keep saying no. But there's one breed that keeps sort of pulling up my heartstrings on that level, and that's the retriever. I do love a golden retriever.
Well, adapt you, feed you.
Yeah, and they're just lush. They're so lovely. In which case, and if that meant, I need a brush, Christ. These dogs molt.
What's one? You can only take one tool and one product. Stop.
One tool and one product, or just one?
One tool and one product.
One tool and one product.
It can be a grooming table if you want, but if you only know one tool.
I would say I would take, and this is going to be a very controversial one, but I would take my Denman brush, because I use it on all of my dogs.
I love a Denman.
I love the Denman.
I had this for years, so I love a Denman.
Yeah, Denman hairbrush, game changer. And all the dogs seem to be so much more receptive of it, which is great. And I would take, I've got to take a good conditioner. I've got to brush it through.
Any particular type?
I do like the Clip-It one, and I'm not just saying that because I was with them. Which saying that, they have just brought out a new brush, which is very similar to a Denman, and I do like it.
Oh, okay then. You hear first, Denman brush, Clip-It's just bringing one out, so there you go. Stamp key to there, that's what I said.
They literally just launched it, so I would recommend it.
We have a photograph of that sent over for Emma as well, and we can add it all at the bottom. So photograph of Alon, obviously photograph of your pets, that's a given, whatever's and we'll have a photograph of your Denman and of the Clip-It one. And and don't forget to send a picture of your workbook.
Oh yeah, the little book, yeah.
The link. Well, if you send Emma the link for that as well, we'll pop that at the bottom of it. But yeah, it's important to be able to share the wealth, I think.
Absolutely.
Everything that helps us, anything that saves us time will save us money by default. And anything that saves us time is also going to save us on our usage on our arms and our joints and everything else. So, I want grooming to remain everybody's happy place. That's my That's my biggest goal in life, because there's nothing worse than having somewhere that you love, that is your place to go to, that's your happy place. And then all of a sudden, because of things that happen, it becomes somewhere you don't want to be anymore. That's sad. And, you know.
Well, grooming is scientifically proven to release endorphins in both the dog and the groomer if done in the right way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I mean, let's pick each other up, guys. You know, it's important that we support each other. You know, never mind thinking about tie-dye and crystals and, you know, when you think of this, you know, beyond that, think beyond that. Listen, I've got to say, it's the first time I've met you, and it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you, Daniella. It really has. I can't wait to have you back on for the grooming experience.
Love it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, honestly, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your time.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Myself and the team hope you've enjoyed the podcast, and if so, leave us that elusive review via your podcast provider. And if you'd like to know more about Savvy and our booking software, visit us online at savvypetspa.com. Thanks for joining. Catch you next time.